Hello and welcome to part 0 of my Championship Lode Runner video walkthrough here on YouTube. Why part 0? Because I want to make clear that it's an optional introduction where I discuss game mechanics and strategy. Everything I mention generally here should be mentioned specifically in the appropriate level walkthroughs, but I hope the overview is useful. My own personal history with Lode Runner is next and may be less useful, and then at the end I will talk you through the demo level that the game plays. It's a well-done intro to strategies, and in fact, the NES replaced the Apple level one, which was welcoming in its own way with it. In any case, whatever appeals most to you, please do use the outline liberally to focus on what you want. This introduction is meant as something that will help you ease into what is a pretty tough game. I included levels I created with a level editor in the background, which hopefully can isolate a certain strategy, or maybe just provide entertainment and amusement in addition to the strategies and mechanics I'll be discussing. As CLR has 50 levels, I chose to break this walkthrough up into 11 separate videos, including this one, for 5 levels per video. Since the game can be fast-paced, I will provide a recap after, showing a map of the level as it would appear in the Lode Runner editor. This map shows the end-of-level ladders and false floors. I will also discuss things like when to slow and speed up play, or when CLR requires a bit of insight or a bit more grinding, or general stuff that didn't fit while I was describing how and why I ran around. I'll also discuss how the player might be able to deduce where false floors and level ladders are, and of course it's important to note ways you can unknowingly lock yourself out of a win. Also, for reference, I will be running at standard emulator speed, but I'll try to mention when I crank the speed up and down via the arrows. I realized too late that doing so made it tough to say, wait 2 seconds here, as time would not be uniform. So although it gets pretty intuitive for how fast holes fill up, I don't recommend micromanaging game speed. You'll want the game slow for when you need to make twists and turns, but fast for when you'll be moving in straight lines and not digging. One big thing to note about speeding up the game is that, above a certain speed, digging through holes won't kill an enemy running at you. Now about this video series. I wanted to make a continuous run from level 1 to 50, but you may see the score at the end of one level differ from the start of the next. That's because after recording a decent run, I've found some ways through a level that would take 30 seconds or more off my time. The total gameplay is just under 2 hours. Levels vary from 20 seconds, though playing through without a walkthrough would require trial and error, to almost 7 minutes, with a level full of split-second timing puzzles. I've managed to avoid using save states in level, but I'll note if I cut something from the middle of a run to avoid completely repetitive gameplay. As of now, that hasn't happened yet. Levels I replayed and re-recorded include, at the time of this recording, levels 5, 9, 21, 26, and 32. I'll try and note if there are any more as I go through. Let's look at controls first. I mentioned I use the keyboard. I, J, K, and L move around, U digs left, and O digs right. You can stop yourself by pushing the spacebar or running or digging a direction you can't actually go. I hold my hands with UIJ for left, ring, middle, and index fingers, and KOL for right, index, middle, and ring fingers. The left and right arrows increase and decrease speed, but don't stop you. There are some details worth knowing about controls. If you fall on an enemy and need to bounce on their head a few times as you fall, tap I so you don't go down and kick their head. That loses you a life. It's also useful to know some rules and enemy behaviors and tips that aren't spelled out in the manual. The object of each Lode Runner level is to collect all the gold chests and make it to the top, while avoiding enemies half as fast as you. CLR can really mess with you here. Often it's not too bad to get all the chests, but you're stuck where you can't reach a ladder, whether by the terrain or by enemies that won't budge. There are some areas you will need to attack first, and there are others where you can't let enemies drop. So you need to be able to get past enemies without sticking them in a hole for good. You may also need to guess where end-of-level ladders appear once you get all the gold chests. Again, CLR can tease you when you think ladders should appear a certain place, but they don't. One trick it does allow, and in some cases require, is that destroying a gold chest counts as collecting it. This happens when an enemy carrying a chest runs into a floor and is swallowed up. It also happens if you dig a floor, then dig a square below, and the enemy falls in there. The chest won't appear above, but it's counted as collected right when the enemy falls in. Enemies grabbing chests can be a nuisance or a help. They always pick up chests they run across, but releasing is random. If there aren't a lot of places to dig, they're a nuisance, and though they can't release a chest while falling, they can release the chest while walking on top of another enemy. That's annoying, but they can also release a chest when cycling or bouncing up and down on a ladder top. That may save time for a chest you have trouble getting. So, in one case, actually, it's critical, and it's one of my favorite levels because it looks simple, then it looks impossible, then you finally realize what you have to do and how to do it. Also, one of CLR's main strategies is to stand on just the right part of the ladder so the enemies run away. While I'm not 100% sure on the mechanics, the enemies generally look for a place where they can fall or climb to that's on a level with where you are, whether you're far or near, and whether that place is far or near. They will also tend to go to the left instead of the right if they have two equal possibilities of ways to go, even if you are to the right. This will play a big part in my strategy. Also, if you want to do things yourself, it's important to have a grasp of how and when enemies appear after they get trapped in a floor square that fills. Generally, any square at the top initially occupied by nothing or by an enemy is fair game. Sometimes you'll have to wait for them to regenerate in the right place, and sometimes you'll want to avoid killing them so they don't reappear somewhere where they will block you. Now for a personal history. You can skip to the demo by clicking on the chapters below. Experienced Lode Runner players may have a good grasp of what the demo shows, so they can just skip the rest of this video, but I do think it's a good demo, so I wanted to include it with the commentary. CLR has a special place in my heart, as it's the first long action game I really solved, and also I'd heard of it but didn't see it for a few years. I wanted a real challenge, and I got one that lasted for a few months. I enjoyed having 10 disk save slots, where you would progressively lose a guy if you kept saving from the original state, so you knew you had only so many shots to figure it out. I'd generally fill up 9 or 10 of the save slots with the current level, and it got really tense on the later levels where I worried I might get stuck and have to start over from level 1. I never knew when to dump that save state from a few levels back, and when maybe to take all 10 save states for a certain level. I would often work out the grindy bits and intuitive bits separately, chucking a few lives just to see how to get a certain gold chest, even if I knew it made others impossible. Then I would put what I knew together in order to get through the level from my main save state. I enjoyed the planning and, in some cases, mapping out which floors were real and which were fake. CLR was one of the very last games I bought in the Apple section of Babbage's before those shelves disappeared completely. I got it on sale, and I felt that Bird One definitely earned that money, especially after I had made a bunch of my own levels with a pirated version of Lode Runner years ago. But it wouldn't originally work because it was joystick controlled. It looked so cool and I wanted to play it, but I couldn't figure it out. I think eventually I saw Control-K from running a directory program on the pirated disk I had, pushing PR number 6 from BASIC, where the file names were keyboard instructions. So I really ate the game up to level 19, where I got stuck on a trap level where you couldn't move. I didn't know if it was copy protection or what. But the file menu also had editing mode, and I really enjoyed poking around at the later levels. I began to grow disappointed some of the latest ones were so easy, so I made my own. This was a few months before we bought a joystick. I still think the keyboard works better, as you can just push a key and let go and you'll fly across the screen. CLR also has something some of the great Apple role-playing games didn't have, the ability to draw the level up in your mind and try new stuff when you have some free time. The levels really are a great mix of grinding, enemy manipulation, and split-second timing, and there are a lot that I still think, well, you can get away with this once, but you better not do it again, and CLR doesn't try to, so they add really good variety. From what I can piece together, I bought it sometime in the summer of 1989 and solved it sometime in October, so it lasted without being dilated by tedious grinding. You always had something to think of. You didn't need anything like a light spell or whatever either. It still feels cool to find a slightly slicker way to complete a tough level. I found a few making the gameplay videos just now. I also had my own little foibles when playing the original, which carried over to CLR. I remember filking Ray Parker Jr.'s Ghostbusters in my mind to fit Lode Runner. I won't tell you everything, but of course the chorus went, "What you gonna play?" and there was a Lode Running makes me feel good bit. I don't think I ever sang it, because I didn't want to risk my parents taking the disc away. I also probably went, "I ain't afraid of no pits," because I didn't have a manual, so I didn't consider the enemies were just guards, and I didn't know other players called them monks, which would have both scanned. I'm glad I made up my own story, where the gold chests were stolen barrels you needed to recover from robots who had confiscated them. Why robots would want barrels, I never had a good explanation, but I knew who had hired you. Daryl, who owned a chain of stores called Daryl's Barrels. Why people would need that many barrels, I again neither knew nor cared, but I was glad they apparently did, since I always found the old-timey barrels inside Pepperidge Farm stores or an A&W root beer stand cool. I was also outraged at Crate and Barrel's refusal to even supply barrels for window decoration. I've mellowed with age, and it helps that I haven't seen one for ages. However, I'll say gold or chest a lot in this video, mainly because I want to save syllables for some of the faster levels to help keep up with the action. Plus, shorter words are tougher to slip up on. So yeah, yet more youthful idealism and imagination quashed in the name of convenience and efficiency. That's all for the personal stuff. The demo talkthrough starts after this level ends. Not too long, but I won't be hurt if you skip ahead. Okay, so here's the demo. The first thing we do, we wait just a split second so we don't run into the enemies, and then we walk across them. We get the gold at the top. We have to do it right away, otherwise it's not available. Then you see we dig here, top square, square below that, and then we dig so that the enemies come forward. We go to the bottom of the ladder, then we dig the third square, then we go up. The first square is healed, and we dig right. Now the enemy regenerates, and we use them as a stepping stone to pick up all the gold chests here. The enemy themselves will have a gold chest, so we will need to dig the floor to get the gold chest from them. But it's pretty low risk, just have to wait a bit once we make the final fall. There we go, and dig left. And now actually, surprised didn't dig right and then fall onto the chest. You notice that we're not going down and taking the chest because there is a false floor under it, so we do need to dig above it. We wait for the bricks to heal, and now we dig 5 bricks here to get the gold next to the ladder. This is a pattern that'll be seen on some of the tougher levels. 2 left and 2 down, and now we dig left, and we can get the gold chests one at a time, but it's pretty comfortable to get back to the right and have the brick fill up again. And now we dig to the right to save a bit of time. We fall onto the false brick. We go back up, and now we just make it to the top with little or no problem at all. And it's kind of funny, the demo the second go round, you make it across the enemies, but you'll see what happens. You dig into the pit, you fall into it, and you don't get a reprise. Time to actually play the game. This is how the demo level would look in the Lode Runner editor. I'll be doing this after every actual level as well, so we can see the end of level ladders, which look like backwards C's linked together, as well as false floors, which are white T's sandwiched by blue bars. This information isn't too important for the demo level, as the false floors won't trap us, but knowing it helps avoid surprises. Also, we can sometimes reverse engineer where the end of level stairs must be to allow us to get back to the top. On the tougher levels, we may guess wrong, but sometimes that can make the puzzle more satisfying when we do figure it out. Here we clearly need a way out from the lower left, then from the lower right, then to the top row. I realize I didn't pause the demo to separate the level into these 3 main areas, but it's useful to do so to see which gold chests we need before moving on to a new area. So that's all there is to this video. Thanks for watching through, and if you've enjoyed this enough, giving a like or subscribing if you haven't already goes a long way in encouraging me to share more videos of fun games you may want to revisit or didn't realize you missed. See you next video.